Welcome to the Stay Hungry podcast. Today, we are joined by Ryan Drumheller. Welcome.
I appreciate you for having me. It's good to finally meet you, almost in person, but virtually,
I know,
Matthew.
we're kind of close here, it's all virtual, but I brought you on the podcast because you are an expert in all things IT. I mean, you've been doing this now for over 20 years. You're a fractional CIO, and you're the founder of the Stellar Horn Group, where you really help companies to cut through all this noise when it comes to tech and AI and focus on the real lasting change. So to start things off, I wanted to focus on this new AI. It's been crazy, it's popping, and in my opinion, you have all these companies now chasing this like hype train. But in your like thoughts right now, where is AI? Where is it going in our current just in the whole like business world?
Yeah, you kind of hit it on the head a little bit. I think AI is a great example of amazing marketing right now. You're seeing it everywhere. You're hearing what you think is all these good things. And don't get me wrong, like I use it in my personal day, I use it in my work life. It's an amazing tool. If you remember, it's an amazing tool and not an automation thing that you can just set it, forget it, and it'll take care of all your problems. And that's where businesses are kind of going wrong at the moment is they're forgetting that human step, that pre-planning, that get ready, get your business ready for AI adoption. Because if you don't, then if you actually pay attention, you'll see all the real stories going on, which is all the horror stories of AI costing billions of dollars. Less than 20% of projects are successful right now. I mean, look no closer than OpenAI trying to go to IPO and is missing revenue targets left and right now, talking about selling off some of its assets.
Because from what I've seen, from what you're saying, the main problem is the cost of like just having to like buy AI. Is that what you're kind of saying for like a company?
So, well, it can cost you a lot for sure, especially if you're not doing it, properly, right? Like a lot of these companies are saying that they need a AI, but they haven't even scoped out their own business yet to figure out what they can use AI for on their own companies.
I see.
And yeah, if you're not actually doing the research and the work on your own company, then you're already a few steps ahead. And what we need to actually do is take a couple steps back, figure out what things are really manual in your company that we can get quick wins out of and go ahead and automate, then figure out where else can you get proficiencies from, your own company's point of view. And then before we go any further, you need to set up a governance committee. You need to have an actual governance place of technology and business leaders in the business that are actually going to oversee this, figure out what AI projects they're going to greenlight, which ones they're actually going to say, okay, that's okay, and do it this way. You can play in this sandbox and do it here, and then secure it. And then
Mm-hmm.
coming out of that, who is actually in charge of each of these initiatives? Because that's the part I'm seeing a lot of businesses forget. A human needs to be in charge of these things. And then, like, one of the last things we do is we take a look at the data as well, and we go, where are you at in your data environment? I think a lot of us can realize that when we're playing with AI clients right now, and we're asking it things and we're saying things, and it ends up spitting back something that is completely not what I asked for. Imagine doing that with your bad data. So your bad data goes in, bad results come back out. So if you don't clean that up first, you shouldn't even start, because if you jam it through, I've been saying this term a lot lately, it's like mud. So you come out with brown, yucky mud, and in order to get it back, you take a glass of water and you keep dumping it on that. Well, how long does it take before that mud becomes clear enough to drink? And
Mm,
that's what you're going to get with your AI results if you don't do all of these steps leading up to the actual, adoption and deployment of whatever you want to do with AI in your business.
right.
So because your competitor has it doesn't mean they did it right. And you should not panic yet because they do have it. If you do it right, you should focus on you first.
Right. Because most companies, I'm guessing, don't do this yet. The whole like governance council. That sounds like a very new topic to me personally, right?
The ones that do are probably part of the 20 percenters that
Right.
I'm
It's not quite
referencing.
common yet. But you're saying that most large like corporations do something in that fashion for this.
I think it gets worse the bigger the business. At the
Really?
moment,
You think
those are the
so?
businesses that we're seeing. Yeah, I mean, those are the businesses that we're seeing cutting entire departments and saying like, "Hey, we don't need a sales and marketing team. We can just plug AI in and let it do its thing." And the stats on that are also staggeringly bad because we're seeing industry leaders that then did that. They're no longer leading the industry anymore. They're now fourth, fifth, sixth. They're falling down because what happens again is if you think about it, if you go ask AI to write you something and then you keep doing that, does it not sound more like an AI robotic machine than if a human
Right.
said that? And if your marketing is spitting that out constantly with no longer any human element, thinking and planning for like the psychology around the marketing aspect, it's just going to sound robotic. And the studies show, I mean, I could probably ask you this question. When you call a place, what do you want to talk to? You want to talk to a robot or do you want to talk to a person?
Real person.
And the stats are still like they're still showing that over and over again. So when you drift away from that, they're not utilizing it in the way that they could be utilizing it for good. They're looking at cost savings, and it's actually costing them more than the cost savings in the end, and they might not recover at the end of the day.
I'm curious to know your thoughts on if we get more human. Because some AI right now you just can't tell for like an image or like a clip. At that point, are your thoughts changing then, or is it still more like the pro-human side first and then like the technology?
I think people are always going to want to gravitate to humans. I think that's just the nature that in any, like, if we ever get a choice, we're going to want the human over the machine. I think, like, for example, I've used AI plenty of times to come up with photos or logos and other things, and I'm not a drawer. So for me, it's amazing. Like, I can't draw, always something I wish I could do, but now I feel like I can, and I'm using it for good. But the companies that are corporate 500s and bigger and the ones that you're seeing all these layoffs happen at in the hundreds of thousands of individuals, they're the ones that are really just saying set it, forget it, use AI and don't worry about it. And that's going to do some real damage. It's already doing real damage, honestly. So it'll be interesting to see where we're at.
What are your thoughts on like large data? Like if you had all these spreadsheets, customers, data, you have to then filter through all of that by yourself. So where's the balance between your own like human capital and then having some sort of technology to go through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And my opinion is absolutely use AI for that. But make sure you have a human, at least, if you want to downsize, say, a team, because you're having people do very manual things, and quite frankly, no human enjoys doing very manual, repeatable things. That's a great use of that. Have those people do something else that's valuable, train them a new skill, and then have somebody over watching and going, hey, that doesn't look right. Let me check into it. Otherwise, I think I used an example recently of say you're relying on a really critical shipment of some kind of product that you need to come in and you're not paying attention and AI goes, I trained myself in a different way because you weren't paying attention and I bought something completely different and now you're hosed. And that those are real stories that if you look around right now, that's happening.
It's almost kind of scary too, because if AI is like the boss of your whole company, if they screw up, have like your data, they can like delete files, delete like a database, so you don't have some sort of human still like in charge of the whole like operation in that sense.
There's a like in the last 30 days article that's out there right now of a company that very much released an AI bot, didn't pay attention to it, thought very much automated, we don't got to worry about it. Oof, we save money. It retrained itself and deleted all of the company's data and also exposed them because they didn't have backups. So they are very much in trouble. I don't know if they're going to recover. I'm watching that one from afar to see if they even come back from this.
What are your thoughts on privacy? Because you're giving all this data. Do we stop that, you think, or we just keep on doing it for correct training these like models to help us, right?
So a lot of my advisement in like contracts is to make sure that you do have a clause that says that they have to ask you for your sign off to use your data, and even if
Right.
it's their product, because you don't want to. Some data is okay, but like your trade secrets, your private data, like none of that do you want to actually have exposed, because then it
Hmm.
just becomes out there for everybody, and your competitors are absolutely going to get your trade secrets. I mean, imagine, like, for example, Coca-Cola's recipe gets thrown into AI. Well, there goes their competitive advantage because now Pepsi's copied it and everybody else has copied it. And those are the real dangers of something like that. So, especially when you're signing tools, you want to make sure you read the fine print and see what their contract says for what they can do. And if it says they can do anything, you go, nah, I'm not signing this.
Right.
Unless you change, and say that we can share what we want to do, or none at all. Like maybe you have a private environment that only your models are trained with your data and in that particular tool. And that's typically what I advise is to better overprotect than underprotect.
Which makes sense, just in case, right? So I'm curious for your company. You help to kind of coach companies, right, to kind of go through technology. Do you see lots of like patterns for this always happens for this kind of company or these kind of founders from what you've seen in like your background?
You see trends, for sure. Like right now, I'd say 90% of conversations are AI centric. Kind of makes
Right.
sense. But a lot of it comes down to getting some of the basics right, and making sure that we're kind of seeing what their business behavior is. And that can be hard sometimes. And sometimes it can be really easy, right? Because you bring in somebody like me, an outsider at that point. I'm not working in your business day in, day out at that point of my arrival. So my only opinions are what I see. And sometimes that helps bring some clarity to them because they're like, oh, you know what? I've been working here for 5 years and I just did this particular thing because we knew we had to do it, and I just never questioned why. I just always did it. And then when I bring, a level of clarity of like, well, let's try to do this, or this is why I'm suggesting to do that, it's like, oh, I didn't even think of that. So things like that can really help in those situations. And then we can get those people that maybe were business individuals just running IT tasks because they didn't have the IT staff or the knowledge or whatever it was. Now we can get back focused on what they're professionally good at and get this over to other professionals at that point. They're going to help make their lives easier. And then now they're working together kind of thing.
So you're more like training them. So you're there for maybe like 3 months. You kind of like leave, or do you guys stay at that company for like a long time for the tech side of things?
So it depends. So my services are fractional leadership, and that can be anything from, scaling on a short-term basis to scaling to a long-term basis. Being that I just created the company a couple of months ago,
Really?
it's obviously not a long-term basis.
I'm curious why you created a company.
Oh, yeah, yeah. We can go on that, no problem. The reason why I created Stellar Horn Group is you're seeing everything that I'm talking about right now in the IT space with individuals losing their jobs. I had my job cut about a year ago now.
Mm.
Um, didn't see the writing on the wall, very naive. I was very much just head down into the work and not paying attention, so to speak. In a lot of regards, I was planning to make another move probably about 6 months or so after the situation had happened.
Hmm.
What I didn't account for was AI and the economy and all of those things that came into play. So after that, after about 10 months or so, I did a lot of interviews with a lot of companies in leadership roles. And this is what really has settled on my current leadership scope, which is there's some problems in IT leadership. And I've sat in those rooms, and I sat in the rooms with individuals who told me that they very much weren't IT leaders, but they're holding those IT leadership titles, or they were IT leaders and they just show up every day and go home like everybody else. And that's great, but that is not this space. IT changes so rapidly and so daily. And if you're not trying to educate and upskill all the time, at least on a basis that's like healthy, then is your business trusting those individuals? But at the same time, when you get an opportunity for somebody like me that walks in the room in a particular company, I had an entire AI plan too. I researched their entire company. I pulled out everything I could out of ChatGPT, Claude that I could find on them, and then gave them ideas. Whether I cared if they did any of those things, it was just like, here's how you could do AI from an outsider's perspective. And here you go. You guys honestly should be the professionals because you all work here in this business, right? But
Should be,
here's an
right?
idea, and it freaked them out. I'm sure that ended up in the trash. And the last I had heard is they just turned on Copilot and called it good. And I'm like, that's like the worst thing that you can do because we didn't do a governance committee. We didn't train the employees. Is it like, do you even know that there's settings inside of Copilot to make sure that your data is staying inside of your environment and not, going back to Microsoft? It's like, these are what I'm finding, at least in my area. So I decided no more of that.
Gotcha.
It's time to go ahead and take the jump, and let's go ahead and start my own thing. And maybe if I can grow this, I can show enough businesses, help bring the value to them, grow this thing. Maybe I can go ahead and grab some of those individuals that are out there hurting, that are very talented. We can bring them in over here and do some great things. And that would be my lifelong goal here for the company, is to grow it and give a place that individuals can be. Because as great as it is to work by myself, I'm a people person. I love other individuals and ideas, and we grow better bouncing off one another.
Exactly. I'm curious, what shocked you the most? Because as like a new company owner, I'm sure it's a lot more stress and paperwork. What changed for you, like for like your personal life, for at the company?
What changed for me? Yeah, I'm human, so I guess I had to go through the emotions a little bit of like, I don't get it. Like, I've played the game the right way, right? I found myself almost on the opposite end of the spectrum. Like, a lot of people like to read off all the credentials and the rewards, and I ended up figuring out that that actively worked against me at a lot of
Really?
places. They likely saw that as too much money, or this could be a know-it-all, or they themselves, so it's interesting. If I ever do interview at places, if I can get a hold of somebody's name or do research, I look up anybody I can. If they release names on the interview panel, I try to see what I can find out. And the constant thing that I found out is not a lot of individuals actually want to upskill. They like got the position, maybe they went to school, they never got anything else after that. And as great as it is to like do things inside the business, now you only know that business. You don't know industry trends, you don't know
Mm,
technology trends, you don't know anything else. So how are you bringing value back to that business? And I'd find myself in the rooms with these individuals, and I figured out very quickly every time I came to that conclusion, it's like, it's not going to happen. Like, I'm talking to individuals and they're staring at me kind of like that. And they don't know whether or not to believe it or if I'm just talking, nonsense, because they don't know. And that was the scariest thing that I found with a lot of these businesses. And I figured out, like, thinking about it, like, what would change that? Like, what could I flip the narrative? Because I thought I was doing the right thing. And I figured out that along my path of research, fractional work is booming right now. And typically what that is you can bring somebody in from a higher level leadership perspective and pay them nowhere near a C-suite level, salary and benefits and all of that. You're paying me, a fractional salary, so to speak. And in return, I'm giving you, a certain amount of allocation and time. And then I'm diversifying my risk at the same time because I'm working with a couple, companies at a time. So that way, when one ends, my all of my income doesn't end, all of my ability doesn't end. At the same time, you're getting the best value in each one of these things because you wouldn't be able to hire an individual at that level. And now all of my resume and credentials and projects and experience becomes a value saver and not a value cost. So uh,
interesting.
that's what led me to doing all of these things and getting creative, and a lot of like, if I could go grab the stack of books and show you like the amount that I put into just trying to make sure that I knew what I was walking into and going, this just makes sense. This is the new wave probably that we're going to see, especially in IT, as the first industry really hit by AI.
Interesting. So I'm new to the whole like fractional world. So you're saying you pay somebody less money, but you train them for more skills, basically. So you're not gonna have them for like a long term, if we're like a short term sort of contract. Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, so the way that I structure my contracts are anywhere from like a 30-day to a 30 to 90-day
Really?
initial
So very
contract.
fast.
And that means that we can keep on going for as long as it needs to go, but they also have the ability to get out of this contract in 30 days if they don't think they're getting the value, and vice versa. I have to work for the value. I have to prove that everything I'm saying is something that is actually going to be delivered. So it becomes a less risk for the business at that standpoint, because the truth is recruiting for those kind of roles, if they are able to hire for those roles, they're very long. They cost a lot of money, and then nobody's doing any of those positions while that's going on. So for
Hmm.
those companies, they can insert somebody like me to keep the ship going, and then hand it off truly to a hire if they want to. Or on the flip side, for those businesses that aren't at the ready, like they're not at the level to have a true CIO, CTO, whatever it is, sitting down, but they can then actually go hire an individual like me to sit down and be embedded in their leadership team. It's truly one of those situations. It's going to be cliche that their success is my success and my success is their success, because my contract is dictated to successes, and otherwise we don't have a fit, and there's no point for you to keep me on if I'm not doing what I'm saying I'm doing. And
Right, right.
you're paying me very little in return for the C-level actual cost, right? I mean, these are three, $400,000 roles or more in a lot of cases when you add up all the benefits that those particular individuals get. And I am not structured in any kind of way to that. I am structured in a way that is a benefit to your business and that you can cut out when you no longer need me, right? Or if you
Right.
only need me for advisory, right? Like you don't need me every day, but say you want me once a month to come on and help train your team or walk them through something else, then we shift the contract to a different stage or a level, and now I'm advising instead of actually embedded leadership at that point. So it's a real advantage for companies that they can't afford that kind of leadership.
But it's like a downside to you because you're almost having to chase then all these small deals here and there. So like your long term clients are maybe here and there because you want to convert the 1 month ones to maybe like a 1 year, but you're checking in like once a month, right? Is that like your like, ideal goal for like your company?
Typically, so well, my ideal goal, honestly, is as much as it's great to put food on the table, like we all want to be able to eat and have salaries and stuff, and like that is absolutely on the mind. My
Right.
real goal is to actually help these companies, and by helping all of them, in each one of these relationships, then it becomes a lot easier, so to speak, to not have to chase because I become known. I did a good job. They refer me to somebody else and I help that company. And that's kind of how it goes. And in the fractional space, I look at my own workload and I go, okay, I'm doing, say 26 hours a week right now. Okay, maybe I can take on another client. Maybe I don't have any clients in the pipeline and I need to actually build my pipeline. So I'll take advantage of the extra 14-ish hours in a typical 40-hour week and build the
Yeah.
pipeline. And it exposes me to a lot of different spaces because now I'm not just an IT individual. I'm a small business. I'm having to do sales and marketing and IT work and legal, like all of these things I have to actually keep up on and do. And it's a challenge, but I have an MBA. I went to school
Hmm.
for it. I enjoy a lot of business aspects. And, I'm a true person that believes that hard work is what gets you to places, and it's not going to fall into my lap. I got to go do it.
Exactly.
So we'll see what happens, and we'll definitely try.
Well, you went from IT to now really like leading people. Because I imagine for the whole like IT world, some geek, kind of quiet. But in your world, what is like a true like IT leader look like?
Yeah, yeah. So an IT leader should look like.
Exactly.
um,
Should is the question.
yeah, no, they should be somebody who is remembering that all of the individuals that they're leading are also humans on top of themselves, and that is a constant reminder they should tell themselves, because we're all going to have good days and bad days. And when you have a bad day, or for example, when I knew somebody was nearing burnout, or they had just done an overnight release for me, or an emergency situation, I would say, hypothetically, Bob, that's amazing. Thank you for doing that weekend work for me. I'll see you Tuesday. And they would stare at me and be really confused, like, well, I work Monday, and I'm like, I know, I'll see you Tuesday. And they're
Uh,
like, well, what do I do with HR? Don't worry about HR. I'll worry about HR. HR has no idea what you just did. Like, you just, did a lot of work on in an emergency situation to help keep this business afloat. Go recharge. Quite frankly, an honest conversation is you're not going to be as good on Monday as you will be on Tuesday, because you'll have the chance to recharge now, get your mind right, come back and do better work. And a good leader is going to remember things like that. And they're also going to know how to talk about, quite frankly, the things we know are going to fail, right? Like, I have to carry out this business initiative that I know is not going to go well, right? I've been in that situation numerous times over, and I'd have an honest conversation with the team to say, yeah, some of the smartest individuals in those companies, in every company, believe it or not, are IT folks. And it is hard to get one over on them. And I'd have to constantly remind businesses that I'm leading to say, I know that you want me to say this line. They're going to see right through that immediately, and I'm going to lose credibility with that. And quite honestly, I'm not going to say that. What I'm going to say is we're going to do what we have to do. Everybody has a boss. I said these things just so you're aware, the things I could talk about at least. I said these things, and at least they know where we're coming from, and they understand we just got to do it. But in the meantime, some of the time, especially if it's technical, we can work on plan B while we know plan A is being like forced upon us and probably isn't going to be successful. So that way, when that day comes, we have a plan B where we don't have to say we told you so or we got you or anything. We can come back looking like a partner and go, hey, we understood what you wanted us to do, and now that we were at this crossroads, we actually have this option, and we came with this plan, and now we became a teammate to the business. Because at the end of the day, I'm a true believer that IT is the biggest teammate and supporter of the business. We're not like we're IT and we're business, but we're not siloed in that. We don't have to be. We can be true teammates, and I don't want to see them fail, because if they're failing in the business that I'm working in and taking my paycheck to, that's not doing us any good either. So there's ways to go about it, though. Remember, everyone's a human. Somebody might have believed that was a great idea and truly honestly believed it, and maybe we couldn't convince them. But you know what? We have a way out of this, Bob. Like, we've got this plan over here. If you're interested in hearing it, now at a crossroads. And those conversations, I can tell you, go a lot better when you present it like
right.
that in the back rooms that you don't see.
What I'm hearing from you is people, people, people. From what you said about technology, AI, and leading, you want to have the people first. Because we hear all these tech companies, they put the tech first. It's like the holy grail, but it will probably fail, 20 years from now, maybe. I'm curious for you, if you had like a small company, it's brand new, you have no cash, how do you balance trying to save the money but also like optimize for technology in the future, automation, when you have no funds to like begin with?
Yeah, those are the tough days, right? Those are the tough conversations you have to have with yourself, because in those situations where we're scraping by, it's really a kind of an easy decision. It's whatever we're talking about, what's the ROI of this potential thing? And if it's not clear cut, we know that that's going to be at least the ballpark of our return. And this other option over here, like, we're going to go with that other option over the chance of maybe this one happens. And I just read something like recently, kind of a hypothetical, three different scenarios, and which one would you pick? And the answer right now, especially with what's happening with AI and the cost sink, is you got to go back to basics of business and go like, the people that are running businesses that are successful for a reason. You wouldn't do a bad business deal if you saw that the numbers said probably a negative return. You're not gonna choose to do that. So let's not do that. So let's pick the things that are gonna bring a more positive return at the end of the day. And sometimes you're going to get that wrong. I mean, at the end, you pick the best option, but it has to be something that steers towards the most return on your value.
So your focus is on like the short term, like we can see it like working right now. Because some companies you don't know for maybe 5 years, because for the whole like technology, you don't know it's going to change the whole like landscape 10 years from now. But your main focus is on the day to day. Is it working for that sector, basically, right?
It's interesting because there's a couple. So I'd say yes and no to answer in short.
Right.
But we have to clear up the today's behavior, and we have to change today in order to do a lot of those adoptions before we can get to tomorrow. We're not even going to see tomorrow if we don't get there properly.
Exactly.
So we have to have a plan that holds us accountable today to get those things in order. And then when we have those things in order, and it is tough right now, like especially with AI. I can't tell you honestly what my thoughts are in 2 or 3 years. I'm curious because you hear a lot of theories. I believe none of those numbers right now. So will that happen in 2 years? Like classic business thing you hear is a 5-year plan. Um, 5-year plans right now, I bet are extremely tough. Like you make them because you still have to hold yourself accountable, and you want to measure yourself towards things and see how far, you are off or close to whatever those measures are. But I think they're tough right now. I don't know what 5 years looks like in this landscape.
That's fair because if you go out like 10 years, you're kind of like dreaming because you can hope for all these change, but you don't really know. And so you want to plan for what you can see. I wanted to go back. You said that you did some mergers. I'm curious about that whole process. It sounds very stressful because you're having to then coordinate with this company and that company. Walk me through that whole process of how it worked for you.
Yeah, so in a lot of cases, I would be on pre-meetings. So like I would have insider knowledge. I would have information that I couldn't share unless it was other individuals who all had NDAs that we knew, were signed. So typically, like teams of
With you're saying
individuals
with that company or with like your own company?
with our own
I
company.
see. Okay.
Yeah, when typically when you start an M&A process, a merger and acquisition, you're starting it with nobody else knowing about it, and maybe the other company or the brokerage or whoever might be handling the middle part of that, like that might be the only individuals possibly that might know, like, hey, company A, company B, and company C are bidding to possibly acquire the company. So we would start kind of like with the bid process, right? We knew that we had interest in bidding on a particular company. Like we had already done the legwork from a business perspective. So I would get brought in as a IT perspective at that point. And then we would go, okay, what is it going to take? What are the skeletons in the closet? What are the things that we're going to have to account for as a part of this bid? Because it's not just the cost of paying for the company. It's then, are we going to, take that company's technology and merge it in with ours? Are they going to be a standalone company that won't have interaction with our company? What are the things that we're going to need to do all these processes? And the hard thing is when you make a bid, sometimes you don't know. You're making a bid, and then when you get into, okay, cool, you won the exclusivity bid, like for example, now you have 90 days to close the door, and now everything is on the table. You get to see truly everything. I've been in rooms where, like for example, we knew a company had gotten ransomware a couple of years previous. So it's like, okay, that was knowledge that we already knew. So we were curious of like, say, 2 years from there to where they're at now, like how good of a job had they done, rebounding from that. That particular company, once we got into that window, it was like, oh, wow, it's way worse than we ever thought it was going to be. We have no idea how in the world that hasn't happened again because we have hundreds of thousands of vulnerabilities we see from scans across all of their environment. And then I would get sent in, and a lot of times as the fixer, the uncoverer, figure out what in the heck is actually happening. In this particular case, I flew out to Salt Lake City, Utah, to sit down and go, okay, I asked for a meeting in that situation to say, hey, I want to meet with your security team. Just a very vague response. I'm bringing a security individual from my side with me. We're going out there. We're staying in a hotel a couple blocks away. Can't really hide from us. They don't know all of this. Walk into a room. I realize it's the same CTO I was already talking with, the two members of his team that I already knew existed, and then the CFO. And not one of those titles was a security individual. And I said, this all makes sense. These
Mm,
lovely individuals are doing great jobs in the jobs that they're doing, but they're not security people, so they don't know how to actually get there. So it's like, great, we need to start with convincing them to let us kind of help do that and guide them. And that's hard because, now you have to give up control to two individuals they just met where a deal hasn't even closed yet. They don't have to listen to us. They can say, no, we don't want to do it. So there's a lot of convincing, a lot of like, hey, we both want the same outcome, right? Like they already knew that their jobs were safe, everything was going to be okay. So in that situation, it was a lot better. But absolutely walked in the situation where I met them the day the announcement went out, and these individuals were like, "Do we even have jobs?" And I would get the human part of that baked in. And so instead of asking them right from the get go, do this, this, and this, I'm like, hey, how's it going? My name's Ryan. Yeah, I'm sure this is a big shock to you. Like, we'd start from a human aspect, get them calmed down, and work our ways back. But
mm,
finishing that Utah story, we did come out of that situation with a huge success. We got the mitigations down to like 20%. They were all on like critical hardware that we couldn't shut down yet because they were, producing the actual products in live environments. So they had made a plan to rectify that over time. And our leadership was thrilled. We closed the deal. It was
wow.
$764 million
Okay.
acquisition that we had done. And then the best part of the entire thing is that particular company CTO had told me, I really appreciate the way that you handled everything, and especially me, because I'll admit to you, yeah, I'm a product person. I knew like product IT. I did not know IT security. And yeah, I will say his name, but I'd be like, yeah, Bob, I knew that, but I'm really glad that you felt like I treated you in that kind of sense, because I really was trying to work with you for the same outcome. And that's one of my favorite stories because it
Mm,
was a huge success. I didn't even think about what I didn't know or needed at that point in time. It was just dive head in. We got to get this done. It's not going to look good if we back out a $764 million acquisition that our
imagine.
executives want to do. And we were a client of that company already, so that's how we knew we wanted them. At the same time, it kind of leaked. These things always kind of leak eventually. That we were in talks essentially. So the fact that it came out as a resounding success was one of my check marks of my career so far.
I feel that leaks are kind of tough because you're not in contract yet to have to buy it. So you could like back out if you want, but the whole leak though adds all this pressure then to your company and their company to make some deal to all these people, right?
Yeah, and I don't sit in the actual business side of those conversations, at least at those companies. So I'm sure that we made a sweetheart of a deal to make sure we locked in something. So yeah, we had a lot riding on that. At the same time, the owner of that particular business is going to get a substantial reward, for the return of his company. But at the same time, you're walking in going, okay, well, you didn't show this some discovery. So you knew that it may have been worse than what it was. So that's where it comes, the in between parts where we work together and try to clear it up. And not every M&A is the same. That is just that particular one. Every single one of the M&As I've been involved with was a very different situation, a very different thing that we needed to do, or I needed to get sent in to make sure that we covered our tracks for, or made sure we come out of it successful, which is kind of fun. It's not the same thing, but it's always a high pressure situation, and you got to be ready for that.
How common is that where they're not like lying to you per se, but it's like leaving out like a key detail here or like numbers here? Is that like a pretty common like pattern that you've seen like past like mergers?
The best business is not lying, but not selling everything either.
That's true. So you're not being dishonest per se, but where's that like balance out? You think?
I think it balances like in that particular situation, right? Like they had obviously, sat in their paperwork and everything. Like, yeah, we had gotten ransomware a couple of years ago. Here's the things we had done, and they did actually do things. They had hired a third party company to come in and help them and give them expertise. Is a classic case that I see at companies. Nobody's paying attention to the company. Did they hire the right company? No knock on all these different companies. You'll hear terms like MSPs or consultants or now fractional individuals, and they all kind of do things differently in certain ways. So likely what they truly needed, one of the first things I did was fire that company. I was like, we don't need him. We have our own team. We're going to take care of it. We're going to clean this up and get them out of the way so that they're not in our way because we can already see what needs to be cleaned up. And if I'm seeing that this is the state of the environment right now, what did they do? Because this is pretty bad. So, teaching companies, that as well. It's like, well, they're really great to us. Well, were they? It doesn't look like they were doing, your best interest at heart here because this is what we're showing you. Like this is the real world example. We did a crawl right in the middle of their conference room to show them in real time, not using any insider tools. Here's what I can get if anybody looks at your company right now and showed them in real time. And that was like the real thing I think that broke through for them was like the horror on their faces when they're like, "Oh, wow." And we're like, "This is anybody can get this right now." Now, here's the reports we did, from our insider tools on top of that to give you an even worse, example of how bad it actually is. But here's a plan that we had for it as well. Like we're gonna help you. We're not here to, like beat you down or anything like that. We want to actually partner with you, come out of this with a shared like we all worked together. Like I didn't take any credit for any of that. Now, obviously, like everybody knows who did what, but
Right.
that's not why I do these things. I come in here because we have a job. We want to get out of this. That's the value we got out of that, which was we acquired that company. And in the end, it was it was a success. I don't need to say anything. Let the work take care of that.
I'm curious for you, culture wise, because if you have company A and company B, both have their own culture. So if you combine both into one company, what happens with the whole like tech wise and culture? Like who like takes over then?
I appreciate those in HR.
That is
Um,
fair. That is fair.
you absolutely like where you're going with that, especially in an IT sense, because essentially, say company A is buying company B is no longer in charge.
Exactly.
And that is a hard thing for company B to absorb and learn and take on because for example, say they were a Microsoft shop, and now maybe this other company is you typically see like a Microsoft versus a Slack and G Suite shop or Google
Hmm.
Workspace now. Say we're moving from one to the other, like you're no longer Microsoft, you're now going to move over all this, and I've seen it all, like all like employees from all over the company are like, well, I don't like change, and I don't know how to do this, and it's coming. Like it's not up for debate anymore. Like this is
Right.
a happening situation. What I normally do in those situations, because in a lot of cases those situations would get made at a CTO CIO level, where at a lot of these cases I was down the pecking order from that. So I'm carrying out orders. I would come to them from the human standpoint. I would go out to, for example, I went out to because Peoria, Illinois. We bought a company there, and I actually met individually with some of these employees and kind of showed them in real time, like how to use whatever it was that they were struggling with, talk through their concerns, and again, go back to that kind of human element. And they didn't weren't exactly still happy,
I
but it
imagine.
was a lot more calm. They're like, well, thanks for actually taking the time to walk through me with that, and at least then they started using it.
Right. You made things better. You're more like human in that way. Well, you have been fantastic. We've shared a lot about different topics. I'm curious for like your last thought to the audience, like your last takeaway that you'd share with people. What would that be?
My takeaway in the IT space, which right now is just viewed as such a such a negative. Like I just shared something on my personal LinkedIn for another old coworker that I worked with that, is also out of a job now. It's happening every day.
Oh,
It's tough. It's extremely tough. I've lived it. I kind of still am. I'm grinding in a different way. Um, but you have to remember that all things are temporary. And if you can get back to putting out a little good every day, a little good adds up to a lot of good in time. And even for those individuals who are thinking, well, how do I break into leadership? That's how you do it. You put a little good out there. You help your teammate out when they need help. You help your coworker out from the business that's coming over to IT and they're already frantic. They can't do their job. They're losing time. They're missing meetings. None of that has anything to do with you. So even though they're pouring it onto you, it's not because of you. So if you can find ways to help them out and realize that, like in that situation, the best thing is just to do what they need, follow up with them later. They're going to appreciate that. And then maybe you uncover other ways that you can help them or make their lives less stressful or automate some things for them they had no idea about. Now you become such a huge partner to that individual and others if you continue to do that, that when those leadership opportunities open up, who's going to get those particular roles, right? Well, if 10 people are saying Bob, Billy, and Sally are amazing at what they do, it's probably going to go to them. And then you're going to have people lining up to want to work for you because that's an amazing team, an amazing environment. And I want to you go to work every day in that kind of space. So that would be my advice to everybody in the world of tech and leadership.
wow. Okay, so if people want to find you online, where do they go to?
Yeah, I'm very active right now on LinkedIn. If anybody wants to have a conversation or have questions or just anything in business technology or anything that I post about, feel free. Additionally, any businesses that need help or like what they hear or want to check me out further, my company's website is stellarhorn.com. You can find everything there. Contact me through there as well. And additionally, if you like these kind of conversations about technology and business, I do my own podcast called the Decline Invite Podcast. And I have a lot of other smart individuals on in the industry, and we talk about everything that's relevant in business and IT today and challenges that they're going through or that they're seeing. And yeah, by all means, feel free to reach out. And coming towards the end of this year, I am holding myself accountable to
Mm,
finishing my career so far in leadership book that I hope to put out there to help change the IT industry.
that'd be cool. Coming up soon. Well, go check them out, you guys. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, stay hungry.